Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel for another, nope, not another, it's the first one of these, for a training camp recap. This is going to be the first week of training camp recap because, well, we need to talk about training camp, and there's lots of exciting things that have been happening at practice over the first few weeks, and this is going to be an ongoing series that, you guessed, is going to happen throughout training camp. So every week or so, probably after every preseason game, we'll get together and just talk about the things that have been happening. But obviously, seeing as there hasn't been a preseason game yet, we don't have a game to kind of mark a natural progression of where we should talk, so it's just going to be today. We're just going to talk about the first week of training camp, and then I'll check back in after the Hall of Fame game because these preseason games are going to serve as a good chance to see some of the depth guys, some of the contributors, some of the bubble players that are pushing for a roster spot, just as because as fans, we can't all go to training camp. I know that some people do get to go there. I don't live in Detroit, so I don't get to, so this is really the only chance I'll get to see those players as the preseason games. But in the meantime, there are lots of storylines coming out from training camp, and we get lots of reports every single day. So I thought it was a good time to just sit down and talk about some of them. But just before we get into this week's roundup, if I could get you to hit that like button and subscribe when notifications turned on. Now that training camp is back, football is back, training camp is underway. There's going to be a lot more content to talk about, a lot more videos going up on the channel in the near future. So be on the lookout for that and make sure you don't miss it. So to recap, the Lions opened training camp last Sunday with their first practice of the year. They had a practice on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, a day off Wednesday, another practice Thursday. All of those were in shorts and shells. And then on Friday, the pads went on, and then Saturday they practiced in pads as well. So we have 2 full contact practices and 4 others in just in street clothes and shells that can give us an understanding of who's repping with the ones, who's repping with the twos, how everyone's performing in one-on-ones, lots of wide receiver versus defensive back battles, all that. And then we have a little sample size of the actual trenches and running backs that we can evaluate a little further. But first things first, we should talk about the guys that aren't at training camp for one reason or another. So let's start off with the injuries. Starting off with the guys that haven't been there at all, obviously we should mention Levi Onwuzurike. I did make a little short clip talking about Onwuzurike and his ACL injury. He is out for the year, which is super unfortunate, obviously, because he's got a lot of pass rush juice. This was kind of a make or break year for him in his NFL career, and now with the injury, it might be a long shot for him to ever make a roster again. So that super sucks for Levi, super sucks for the Lions, and yeah, no, there's no positives, but it just sucks. Obviously, the Lions are going to have to look to find some sort of pass rush juice from someone else on the roster with Levi out. He is on the reserve pup list, which means that he is out for the entire year. Now, it's important to differentiate. There are 2 pup lists. There's the reserve pup list that you cannot come back from. And then there is also the pup list, the other pup list that you can come back from at any point. And there are a few guys that are on that as well. Number 1, Taylor Decker. It was reported that he had a cleanup surgery procedure of some sort on his shoulder. He's looking to return to action sometime in early August after the Hall of Fame game. Nothing to be too alarmed with. You know what Taylor Decker is. You know what you're going to get with him. So I wouldn't worry too much. The other guys on the pup list are rookie guard Miles Frazier, Aleem McNeil, who obviously is going to miss the first probably 2 months of the season. You've got Mekhi Wingo, who the sophomore, who he's going to be important now that Levi is gone and out, and Malcolm Rodriguez as well, and Khalil Dorsey, both of whom got injured last year and are still rehabbing. And then Josh Paschal is also on the NFI list, that is the non-football injury list, and all we know about him is he'll come back sometime at the end of camp around early September, might miss week 1 sort of thing. And then we have the guys that are just day-to-day with various lingering injuries that they picked up this week in practice. So the guys that missed practice yesterday, Sione Vaki, Ian Kennelly, Stanley Thomas Oliver, and Kirby Joseph. I wouldn't put too much stock into that. It's kind of one of those things where until bad news happens, don't expect it. There's so much speculation that happens around training camp injuries, but until it's reported that something bad happened, don't worry too much about it. And then we have the guys that returned to practice on Saturday. So that includes Tim Patrick, Roy Lopez, rookie Tyleek Williams. Now, he missed Friday's practice for a personal reason per Dan Campbell, so he wasn't dealing with the injury at all. We have Al-Qadim Muhammad, Alex Anzalone, who had the hamstring thing and also the contract thing that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then Ennis Rakestraw, who suffered a chest contusion. He's okay, which is good because he really needs reps. Now, as for what has been happening at the practices themselves, this is going to combine both the team drills and the one-on-ones, but we're just going to go through a couple of the standouts so far, starting with someone that everyone has their eyes on, mainly to see how healthy he is, Aidan Hutchinson. So obviously with training camp getting underway, all eyes have been on Aidan Hutchinson as he rehabs from his leg injury that he suffered last year that wiped out a potential Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. And obviously, when you play up to that level, people want to see if you can return to that level. And I'm happy to report that it seems like he is. Actually, if you ask defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard, he might even argue that Hutchinson has surpassed the level of play that he was starting the year last year with. And he might even have more juice to bring, which I can't even fathom. That would be incredible. Now, Hutch has been healthy for some time. He was cleared for full participation in OTAs, and he's talked about the fact that at OTAs, that's when he was starting to get the trust back in the leg. He needed to test it. He needed to take some bumps and bruises to kind of reaffirm to himself that, yes, the leg is okay, and he can operate at 100%. So now in training camp, as the pads went on, obviously offensive line versus defensive line drills are a big focal point of that. And one of the first reps of the day, actually the first rep of the day in one-on-ones, is always Penei Sewell versus Aidan Hutchinson, best on best. And Aidan Hutchinson was actually taking it to Sewell a little bit. He had one really good bull rush that knocked Sewell back 3 or 4 steps, and then he was working off to the side on his patented spin move, and he is mic'd up, looks into the camera, and he says, that's going to work. In one-on-ones, that's going to work. And he lines up, and he absolutely destroys Sewell on a rep. Penei Sewell, he just absolutely cleanly beats him. It was honestly just so impressive, so reassuring, and to be able to do that against a top 2 or 3 tackle in the NFL is honestly incredible. So it seems like Hutch is going to be at full strength, which obviously is a big deal because the Lions don't have a ton of pass rush juice outside of him. So it's going to be Aidan Hutchinson and his band of merry men. But if he's operating at full strength, then who cares? Another name that has been popping up in a lot of positive light over the course of the first week of practices is Terrion Arnold, which I know will be another big sigh of relief for Lions fans. It seems like he has taken a step with his confidence. He's done a great job. He's covered Jameson Williams a lot in camp so far, and he's had a lot of good pop in his step. He knocked Jameson Williams' helmet off in one-on-ones. I believe that was on Friday. He's been doing a great job of staying physical, actually making plays on the ball at the catch point. If you've been watching the clips that the Lions post on social media, you'll see that he had a one-handed interception working against Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had a great pass breakup against Jameson Williams on a shallow cross. And then yesterday at Saturday's practice, there was reports that he was doing a great job sticking with both Kalif Raymond and Jameson Williams. Now, I know that Kalif Raymond, like on the surface, that might not seem very impressive, but for years, Kalif Raymond has torched the Lions secondary in training camp practices just because he's so shifty that in these one-on-ones, in 7-on-7s, he just is too slippery to cover. So the fact that Terrion is sticking with him like that is really, really reassuring. The biggest problem for Terrion in his rookie year is he was just too handsy at the catch point. He would be in good positions to make plays, but he wouldn't turn his head and he wouldn't make a play on the ball. He would just instead default to trying to grab at the receiver, and that's where all the penalty problems came from. That started to get better as the year went on, but if he can start to mature his game a little bit and start to turn his head to the ball, quite frankly, and make plays on the ball instead of trying to just attack the receiver, that is where that next step is going to come from, because he has been legitimately good at sticking with people in coverage. It's a lot of confidence that is needed to go into playing corner, and it seems like he has it. It seems like he's primed to have a really solid second year. Now, the next guy on the list is someone that Lions fans don't necessarily get as excited about in the traditional sense, but it's someone that is a young player that has been elevating his game, and now he's taken the next step as the full-on captain of this defense, and that's Jack Campbell. And when I say Lions fans don't get excited, I don't mean it in the sense that like, oh, people don't want Jack Campbell to get better or they don't care. I just mean it like Jack Campbell is not a flashy player. So he doesn't excite the senses as much as a guy like Aidan Hutchinson or a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs on offense or Jameson Williams, right? Like he's a little bit more of like an anchor on defense. Like he is super important. He's absolutely vital to the success of the defense, but he's not as flashy, so he doesn't stand out in that way. However, very importantly, this is his defense now. Dan Campbell's talked about this, that Jack Campbell is the leader of the defense. Everyone rallies around Jack, and he is the one that's kind of barking out orders it's his defense. Like, he is the leader of the pack, and that's what you want to see from a third-year linebacker. Like, that is incredible development. He's the guy who wears the green dot. He relays all the play calls to the defense. He's the main communicator. So if he can take a step in that department and then also show another step in coverage and just getting off blocks, like if he takes another step, he is going to legitimately be a top 10 to 15 linebacker in the league. He already is like a top 10 run defender. So if he adds that coverage element, yeah, he's going to be super sick, man. This next one is a little weird in the sense that this guy already broke out and we already know how electric he is, but he has apparently taken another step in the maturation process offensively, and that is Jameson Williams. Offensive coordinator John Morton has talked with him about expanding his route tree and just working on some of those finer details, and it seems like JMO is really settling in as a pro. It's a big year for him. If he has another big season, he could be in line for a major contract extension. So as he continues to develop, that's going to be how he gets more consistency, because consistency is the biggest thing plaguing him right now, or it was last season. Obviously, he had over 1,000 yards, but there was also games where he completely disappeared. I mean, like there was a game where he had like one catch for 3 yards. There's been games where he just isn't very active. If that can go away and he's consistently getting at least 3 to 4 catches a week, that is going to go a long way for JMO's progression and for his stat line this year. Now, for the love of God, just please no off-field shenanigans. As like if JMO plays a full 17 and he's as consistent as he wants to be, there's no reason that he can't lead the team in receiving yards and touchdowns. Now, receptions is going to be Amon-Ra, let's not kid ourselves, but JMO has all the talent in the world, man. So it's just about finding that consistency. Then the last standout I'm going to talk about today is rookie wide receiver Isaac TeSlaa. Now, obviously, TeSlaa, the pick was heavily criticized, including by me to an extent. I really questioned using 3 third-round picks to acquire this guy. You used the 2 third-round picks next year and the third-round pick you had in this previous draft to trade up to pick TeSlaa, who is a project wide receiver that was seen kind of as a day 3 guy. So a lot of risk involved, but all the tools are there for TeSlaa to be a very productive player in the league someday. He's not going to be, hopefully not counted on this year, so don't really have to worry about that too much, but he's got all the size, speed, and talent you want. Again, it's just about developing as a receiver because he is a very raw prospect. That being said, he's been doing pretty well with the second team at training camp so far. There's been clips every single day of him making contested catches, which is super reassuring to see because he's going to have to develop into an X wide receiver at this level after being sort of a big slot in college. I'm super interested to see the Hendon Hooker and Isaac TeSlaa connection in the preseason. I feel like that'll be kind of a fun dynamic, and I really hope that he can stand out a little bit, make some flash plays. And yeah, man, I don't know. This guy seems like someone who will be a training camp darling and a highlight. Like, he'll be the highlight guy, but there'll be some inconsistencies here and there. But the fact that he's already starting to flash in his first week in pads, yeah, that's a good sign. Again, I'm not trying to set expectations too high. He's the 5th wide receiver this year. He won't be counted on unless something goes horribly wrong on the injury front. But for the future, obviously this is a big deal and you need this pick to pan out. So at least so far, so good. And then to wrap up this video, we're just going to talk about 2 of the big questions that are still present and will linger throughout all of training camp. And obviously, number 1, what is the interior of the offensive line going to look like? This is the biggest question. It's the biggest concern on this team as of right now. With a lot of turnover on the interior, you need to make sure that the offensive line, which is the engine that drives the entire offense, you need it to be good. So how has it been doing so far? For starters, Christian Mahogany is the left guard. There's no debate at this point. The only concern was, is he really going to be that guy in his second year? He only did spot start duty in his rookie year. Nope, yep, he's that guy. Don't need to worry about it. He is going to be a starting level guard on the left side. The real question is who starts at center between Tate Ratledge and Graham Glasgow. It started off as Tate for the first few days, and then Graham has rotated in there. It seems like they're going to go back and forth, but given that we kind of know what Graham looks like at the NFL level as a center, I kind of hope that Tate gets more of the center reps. He's NFL ready as a guard. I just really don't know what he will be as a center. He should be good, but he needs the reps to get there. But that's one where they're going to go back and forth every single day in camp or every few days in camp. That is the starting 5, right? Like, you've got Taylor Decker on the left, then Christian Mahogany, then Glasgow or Tate, in the center and right guard, and then Penei Sewell at right tackle, obviously. Those are your starting five. It's just which one of Graham or Tate is the center, and the other one will be the right guard. Full confidence in both of them at right guard. Graham sliding back over to the right after a down year at left guard. He's talked openly about the fact that he was just being the good soldier and that he's a lot happier on the right. So if Graham is on the right, then hopefully he can have a bounce back season. If Tate's on the right, then hopefully he can have a good rookie season, or if Tate's the center, regardless, right? But that is obviously a big question that is going to have to be answered throughout camp. And then last but not least, what is going on with Alex Anzalone? So it's been pretty public that Anzalone is not happy with his contract at this point in time. And then we came into camp and Anzalone wasn't there. And Dan Campbell said, well, Anzalone crushed the conditioning tests, and so that isn't a concern. So we didn't know what to think. Like, okay, so if he crushed the conditioning test, that means he's not injured. But is he holding out? But Dan Campbell vehemently shut that down. He said, no, I don't want to believe that Anzalone would do that. And then it came out he had a hamstring injury, and now he's back. It's just been a very weird start to camp for Anzalone. Now, I fully respect Anzalone's desire to get a little bit of a pay bump. He is an aging veteran, and this is probably his last chance to kind of cash in to a certain extent. The problem is, I just don't think he has the leverage to do so. The Lions can find a guy to play the will spot in their linebacking room. They've got Zach Cunningham, who's been filling in for Anzalone, and he's reportedly done really well. He's a guy who's led the league in tackles in recent years. So the Lions can get production out of the will spot without Anzalone. It's more of just from a leadership and like voice in the room kind of sense. He is a good player, don't get me wrong. But I don't think the Lions are necessarily prioritizing this the same way they would if Anzalone was like 24 right now, they would have signed him already. The Lions prioritize their young players, case in point, they've taken care of Kirby Joseph, and they've taken care of Derek Barnes, and they're going to take care of Aiden Hutchinson soon. They've taken care of Sewell, Amon-Ra, all these guys. Like, they love investing and reinvesting in their young talent. Anzalone just isn't that anymore, so I don't know how this is going to go. It seems like Anzalone is just going to have to shut up and play. I don't mean that as like a just shut up and play, but I think he's just going to have to play, and then if he keeps playing at a high level, the Lions will reward him for it. Kind of a weird case where you just got to be the good soldier and hope the team rewards your loyalty, but I think the Lions would. It's just a bit of a weird saga that's going on. And then real quick, just before we wrap up the video, I should mention the Lions have expressed interest, maybe not interest, but they've explored the possibility of bringing in some help at edge. Obviously, the Za'Darius Smith shenanigans, I don't know what's going on there. Za'Darius has openly talked about wanting to sign with the Lions all offseason. Kind of seems like the Lions are like, here's your number, and if you want to sign, you can take it. If not, you can leave it. They've also talked to Matthew Judon. He played in Atlanta last year, and he played with the Patriots before that. It looks like the Lions are interested in bringing in some form of edge depth, just to help, because Marcus Davenport can't be trusted to stay healthy, and they don't have a ton of pass rush juice outside of that. So I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of camp, the Lions add a body at edge, maybe even a pass rusher on the interior as well. But that is kind of it. That's kind of all the storylines I wanted to talk about today. And without further ado, that is going to be it for this video. Again, this is the first training camp recap. I'm going to be back after the Hall of Fame game because, yeah, I'm going to watch it because the Lions are playing, and it'll be our first chance to see some of the backups. So I'll check in after Thursday night's game. We'll do a game recap and then what's happened this week or this upcoming week at training camp practices. So, yeah, looking forward to it. I'll see you guys then. In the meantime, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you loved it. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. And I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.